Hey friends, welcome back to Pastor's Wives Tell All. Today we get to chat with our friend Michele Yarbrough. Michele lives in Georgia with her husband Dave of 32 years. They have 3 children, a daughter-in-law, son-in-law, grandson, and granddaughter who will be on the way in September. Michele owns the Armory Bookstore in Monroe, Georgia, and she spent 21 years in preschool ministry from 1996 to 2017. In this episode, we chat with Michele about both the good and the hard of being a female minister. Despite feeling isolated and lonely while serving and teaching little ones, she also learned how to get church members excited about and involved in the ministry. And she explains how we can do the same. So let's get to this important conversation.
Hi, I'm Jessica.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Stephanie.
And you are listening to Pastor's Wives Tell All,
A podcast by pastors' wives for church leaders and anyone desiring to take a peek inside our glass house.
We are breaking down walls and crushing pastors' wives stereotypes within the church.
We want pastors' wives and other ministry leaders to know that they are not alone in this. Plus, this is basically therapy for the 3 of us with a whole lot of dance parties. Whoop, whoop. Hey, Michele, we are so excited to have you on our podcast today. How are you?
I am awesome, and I am excited too. So ready.
Yay! Okay, so Michele, we actually have met you before in Bethlehem, Georgia, when we went to a women's conference there.
I feel like
at
we got to
Bethlehem
sing a song.
Oh, little town of Bethlehem.
I love how we all knew what the song was.
Well, I was like, what else can it be?
Bethlehem Church on Christmas Avenue.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
I mean,
Which, by the way, such a precious town. Like, we had the best time at that conference that we went to, just being poured into and not having to,
amazing.
Pour out, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, we don't get that chance a whole lot. And so it was so neat to come and just be.
It was an awesome trip,
Yes.
for sure.
And so you have the most precious bookstore, and we know you've moved since then, but even then, like, it was the cutest bookstore that you sell obviously books because it's a bookstore, but you also have jewelry and accessories and like notepads and pens and apparel and all of the things. And we did leave there. We did not leave there empty-handed.
Nope.
We sure
Oh,
didn't.
you did not.
We shopped till we dropped. So we know that you just opened a bigger version of your bookstore, and we cannot wait to see your
you.
new place.
Well, I can't wait for y'all to come. We're going to make it happen.
Yes,
Yes.
girl.
Mhm.
And tell everyone where you're, like, what is the name of your
Yes.
bookstore?
Okay. So the Armory Bookstore, and there's a history behind that, which we may or may not talk about later if it comes up. But we are in Monroe, Georgia. And we are downtown, and it's just the most adorable little town. And we opened in 2021 of all times, right?
Yeah.
So we just celebrated our 3-year anniversary and our 3rd space in 3 years.
Wow.
So
That's a lot of moving.
we're just thrilled to be here, and God is just so good. This whole thing is just nothing but Him.
Yeah.
And that's what
It's
we want
amazing.
it. That's what we want it to be.
Yeah.
I love
Well, and
that.
God's going to bless that for sure. And He has,
Absolutely.
because that is your heart for
Yes.
sure. Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to dive right into some deep questions today. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So you
I
were
think so.
in children's ministry for
Mhm.
21 years. And a lot of that time,
Yes.
which you'll kind of share with us, you were on staff. And so you were able to
Mhm.
see what life is behind the scenes. And a lot of people are
Mhm.
not privy to that and don't see what goes on
Mhm.
with the staff and the ministry leaders. And so you
Yes.
have seen, just like us, a lot of the good, the bad, and the really ugly that you wish that never,
You could unsee.
happens in
Yes.
church.
Yes.
So would that be
Yes.
fair to say before we move on?
It is absolutely fair to say. And this is the first time that I'll probably speak quite so open. I've been out of ministry since 2017, church ministry.
Yeah.
Yes.
I like to say church
Yes.
ministry.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're still
girl.
in ministry.
Yes.
Yes, since 2017. And I most definitely have
Yeah.
seen a lot. And I call it a privilege to be on the other side of it.
Yeah.
So I can look back. I spent 21 years in ministry, and I've been gone for 7.
Okay.
So that's a long time.
Yeah.
I raised my children in ministry. I was also a fire wife. At one point, I had 2 jobs, 3 children, a puppy.
That's a lot.
So, and my husband would have been gone for 24 to 48 hours doing all of this. So I do have, I'm in a unique position where I can look back and I feel like really pour into people in ministry and people in general, especially through the bookstore. So,
Yeah. Well, and so of course we love to talk about the positive of ministry and what the Lord is doing, but
yes.
also we need to sometimes bring up the negative and the things that we bring to the table. Us as people on staff and
Yes.
pastors' wives and ministry leaders, we bring bad habits into ministry. We have seen those bad habits. We have seen the destructive behavior. We've seen so many things, not bringing things to the light. It's endless. We could talk about that all day. But for you, what are some of the things and when we start with the negative, I want people to know, like, take this time to ask the Lord to maybe prick your spirit, convict you if any of these things sound like something you have done, or, people on your staff that you can, humbly go and share with them, but also just internally looking at what's going on. So what are some of those things for you, Michele, that you saw behind the scenes and bad habits or just unhealthy things, and kind of share with us those things?
So I 100% believe in starting with myself. And um, being on staff certainly is very unique. And I would say, looking back on it now, I was a young mother. My oldest son is 28, and he was 1 when I started in ministry. So I had proceeded to have 2 other children, and through all of this, and I would say, starting with myself, in that I should have been more dedicated to my personal relationship with the Lord, because that is where it's at. People and churches are going to let you down.
Amen.
And that's just life. So if you're putting people on a pedestal, or if you're so busy that you're not spending that time with the Lord, then how can you make it through it?
Yeah.
How can you? I mean, it's just essential.
Yeah.
So that's where I would start.
Yeah.
And with the church staff, I would say, bring your people in person by person, as long as it takes. Check up on them. Pastors, have meetings with them individually. Ask them how it's going. How can I pray for you? What's going on in your life? What's going on in your marriage? So I watched my pastor burn out and then go on a sabbatical. And I feel like now churches are doing better at giving their pastors sabbaticals and other staff members. But that would be my number one thing, is because we work so hard and we need accountability, and we need to put him first.
Yeah. Burnout is real. And not just that, I love how, well, I feel like both of these things that you've said are things that we have struggled with at one time or another, feeling that burnout, but then also getting so busy serving that we forget to actually spend time with the person we're supposed to be serving. Jesus, like the man that we're here for.
It is 100% it. And, my 4-year-old son looked up at the kitchen table and said, "Mommy, why are you always on the phone?" And back then, that's when I was on the home phone all the time.
Yeah.
And let me just clarify too, I don't know if I said, I was over just preschool ministry. So in our little town, I was over birth to 5, and I would have 100 volunteers every Sunday.
Wow.
So that's 100 people
Yeah.
that I was juggling, and it was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. I had paid people underneath me, and I had volunteers underneath me, and it was a lot. So it took its toll, and a lot of times I let it take its toll instead of creating systems and boundaries. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
boundaries
Yes.
that
Amen.
I should have been setting.
So did you have anyone holding you accountable, like on staff? Because I think that's one thing that's really hard is, having people that hold you accountable, encourage you and say, hey, Michele, how are you doing with those 100 volunteers and paid workers? Like, did they do a good job? Could have it been done better? Because I think a lot of times the staff, we forget to check on each other and we forget to make sure that they are healthy.
Yes. So not really, but I will say I had 2 amazing assistants
That's awesome.
that we tried to, and the 2 of them are still on staff there.
Oh, cool.
And one thing that I really prided myself in, and I would tell anyone out there that's in ministry, is find people to work with you that can do the things that you're not good at,
Amen.
or that you,
That's how we work.
or that are not your passion.
Yeah.
And these 2 ladies were just essential to the job, the ministry, and we were friends as well. So they were, and still are. I mean, one of them literally was here helping me with when we moved into the new store. So
I think that's like one of the biggest things is like what happens is if you are a leader out there and you don't ask for help or you're, have some tendencies to just do it all yourself, then you're not going to do it well. And you're also going to be doing a whole lot of jobs that you're not passionate about.
Right.
So that's really, really awesome that even in the midst of it was growing and maybe you didn't have all the encouragement just because everyone above you was busy as well and probably not getting encouraged themselves, like to have that team around you. And I think what happens a lot of times is there's not a team that they're with these passions and giftings because that's how he's created us to have a team. So we actually grow. We don't grow when we're just the only one doing it. It just is not going to happen.
And I will say I was very fortunate to have, they were paid staff assistants. Like
that's awesome.
There are so many staff members out there, they're doing it all on their own. They don't even have a secretary or like anybody unless they could find a volunteer that might help them with some things. So I was very, very fortunate, and that was just a godsend to be able to have assistants that would help me along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all need somebody for
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
So as you were serving at this particular church, you've mentioned the things that were a little bit harder, but what are some good things that you saw behind the scenes on staff, things that you think every church should probably incorporate into their own ministries? Like, tell us some of those things.
Wow, so much good when you can focus on those 2 more so than the negative. We had a very, and the community still is a very thriving community. We had and still have an excellent weekday preschool that it's a ministry of the church. And I think I'll mainly specifically talk about just preschool and children because that's where I spent my time. And I feel like it is essential for churches. I mean, that's where you drop your kids off every day.
Yeah.
That's every Sunday. I mean, that's where you have to feel like they're safe, that you can leave them without worrying about them. And we had a great security system in place. Even back then, it was on paper, but we had it.
Yeah.
So we had our staff meetings every week and just really, really ministered to the community through ministries, and later on to open a ministry village next door where we really reached out to the entire community. We had staff retreats, probably need them maybe a little bit more often than we did, but they helped us as a staff just come together, and we just had excellent programs to reach out to the community. and really, really detailed oriented and run right.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
good.
Our pastor, he said that in his opinion, the kids ministry, the children's ministry, like that is the most important part of a church, because if somebody starts to visit your church, like, and they have kids, like that means so much to them to be able to leave their kids with somebody. And so it's great that you had all of that in place. And then it was organized, and like that means a lot to people.
yes, it
Yeah.
does. And we had, that's back when we had Sunday school, now
Yeah.
it's a lot of small groups and
Mhm.
everything. And so, and as a preschool director, I tried to do things to where my volunteers weren't just exhausted themselves.
Yeah.
So I tried to do things with them in mind, and I even created like an every other week teaching schedule where you taught as a team instead of just these two individuals teaching every single week. And
That's great.
you're going to have things come up that you're going to need to go to and be gone for the weekend. So that was very helpful. And it was just and still is a thriving church. And even though the Lord called me away from it, it serves a very great community in Walton County.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Michele, we've talked about a lot of the hard things in children's ministry and being on staff, but if you could pick something that you think was probably one of the hardest struggles while you were working in children's ministry and while you were on church staff, what would you say it would be? And then I also want to know, what was your favorite part about serving in those areas?
So definitely my hardest struggle was being a mom and juggling all of that. And just like I've mentioned before, just the constant organization that it took, and just balancing all of that. And I was also trying to balance being a fire wife, like I said, and his schedule. And that just has to be it. That's the first thing that popped in my mind when you guys sent me the questions and everything. And I would just have to say, too, ministry related was being a woman. Being a woman with a thought, a lot to offer, and maybe not taken as seriously as I feel like I should have been, with great ideas and great wisdom and value, just great value.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you some more questions about what you just said. So I think like, let's take that for a minute, because there's a lot of women out there that are going, yes, okay. And it's not like they're feeling attitude-ish about it. It's like, yeah, I feel that in a deep level. So how do we change that? What are some things that would have made you feel more seen? That would have made you feel like your ideas mattered? What are ways, because we want this podcast to help people, and we have pastors and staff people listening, like this could change, their direction, and also for the future women working in ministry, to make things better for them.
So I feel like I've really thought about this and prayed about this a lot. I feel like a lot of times church staff, the church congregation, everyone really needs to just take a moment and open their eyes to, and not just church staff, but families that are working really hard. And you know what? Those families, they have full-time jobs. And they're still coming in and pulling the full Sunday, and they don't get Monday off. And there's these unsung people that, I'm just going to say it, that are not the pillars in the church, that or may not be the names that you hear dropped all the time, or we need to open our eyes to those people and just really pay attention to what's going on and who's doing what. And not that we do it for accolades. We all know we don't do it for that.
Right.
It's just maybe just really open your eyes and see. I just feel like, for me in particular, it would have been more just in like staff meetings and things like that. Just being a little more taken seriously, and then even as from like the church congregation or from people around you, really be open to these people. Maybe they need a meal take the one night and just like, thanks for all you do. Here's supper tonight. Or, and I know a lot of that goes on in churches, but sometimes I feel like it's catered towards certain people.
Yeah, you could say it.
Yeah.
We tell
She's
all
like-
here on this podcast.
She's so nice.
You're being nice.
Pastors' wives tell all.
Yes,
That's right.
it's okay. You can tell all. It's
Yeah,
but here's the thing. We know who you're talking about. I mean, literally, I know for years I say it on a couple of podcasts. Like there are pastors on staff that get little recognition and staff members that get little recognition at a lot of churches, or
Yeah.
even looked down upon, like, oh, you're just working with kids, or you're just working with teenagers. Like, what do you do all day? Because they're at school all day. So what are you doing? And you're just worship. You're just the worship pastor. You just sing on Sunday morning. Like, why is that hard? Like there are people that truly believe that and think that, and sometimes even say that out loud. And so, I mean, what you're saying is so very true. That, yeah, everyone should be like, we are all created equal, but we are put on different standards. Like we have people go, oh, it's the pastor, and we're in a lead pastor role. And I'm so grateful that our church treats all of us the same. They love each one of us absolutely the same, because we see the value that, and Jonathan will even say, I could not do this literally without so-and-so or so-and-so.
Yeah.
But not only speak it, but actually there's actions to back it up. It's not just on a Sunday morning. And so I believe that what you are saying is, a lot of times people didn't see the 100 people that you had under you, on top of having 3 small kids and a puppy and a husband that wasn't always at home because he was saving lives.
Yeah.
And so, to feel like you had someone seeing you, I think the biggest thing is we just want to feel seen.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And we don't, and also at the same time, it's okay if we're not, if that makes, in a way, don't live for that.
Correct.
But
yes.
don't live for that, but yet we need to do a better job of it.
Yes.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So
I agree. I think it could be a whole podcast on it.
Down the road. So much of this could be a whole podcast.
For sure. Okay, so we'll kind of move on, but like at times, serving in the church staff can be isolating, which we're kind of talking about, starting to get into that. And maybe you even feel like, and I know we have so many DMs and ladies at retreats telling us they feel all alone and that it's so hard to find friends. So did you feel that isolation at all? Was that a struggle for you? And how did you eventually find friends if it was a struggle?
So I may date myself here a little bit, but if anybody watched Seinfeld years ago, remember the Soup Nazi episode? I was the nursery Nazi.
The nursery Nazi.
You see TikToks.
So it was very isolating because I would see people turn around and walk the other way when I walked down the hallway because they were afraid I was going to ask them to volunteer. So I could be standing in the hallway after church on Sunday and people were going out to eat and I would not be asked. There's just, it was very isolating but also very rewarding at the same time. So there's the balance between the two, but I know I keep talking about this, but I had also been a first responder wife was isolating in itself. And then I added church staff onto that and young children, like after church, we got to go take naps. I mean, it just, myself included.
Yes.
So you're in a busy time of life. But I was isolated, but like I said, at the same time, I had two wonderful assistants, and we worked very well together and became friends. And I also had great friends from the church that we went to when we first got married. And then the Lord, one time I remember just crying out to the Lord for a friend. And he brought me somebody because I was going through some very specific things later on in ministry that didn't have to do with ministry, but I just needed some help. And he brought somebody my way, and I am so thankful for it. Somebody that didn't have preschoolers and that I didn't have to like deal with in that area. They could be a separate friend, so to speak. And I just would pray for the Lord to bring that person. And another thing I found too that I really want to highly encourage everyone. I don't know if you're familiar with Bible Study Fellowship. It's a national Bible study. And I joined Bible Study Fellowship, and I would go on Wednesday mornings, and they have an excellent children's program. And that became like my church because we would all gather, we would sing a few hymns, and then we would go into our small group, and that kind of became my Sunday school. And I really encourage, there's someone listening to this that is young in ministry, or maybe not even young in ministry, but in ministry in general, and you might need to do that. Seek out another Bible study or another group to go to that is not at your church.
Yeah.
And that really, I grew exponentially spiritually when I was a part of ESF.
That's awesome.
Your story sounds very similar to mine in some ways. And one of those ways is praying for friends. I journaled and cried and prayed and journaled and cried and prayed over and over again before I found the friends that I have now, which are just such blessings in my life. But then also I joined a community Bible study, which was multiple women coming from multiple churches to do Bible study. And so there was a friend I had through that. Well, I already kind of knew her, but I felt grew closer because of that Bible study. She was a pastor's wife at a different church. And so I was able to at least have that outlet as well. That was completely separate from where I was, that church and all of those people, it was just such a good outlet for me. So I love that you mentioned that. I just think if you're lonely and you're in that time, get outside if you have to. Find a Bible study or a book club or something outside of the church that you're actually in right there. You need something too. So I love that.
Yes, I also feel like at times we get so overwhelmed. I went to a conference one time, and I want to say this too because it literally changed my life. They shared a quote, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's so true. No one wants to be a part of a sinking ship. And when you teach children, you teach an age that you do not see. And I was like, wow. So I changed my whole philosophy because it was so easy to be the martyr. Like, nobody wants to volunteer. And we'd make announcements from the pulpit. Anybody want to help in nursery? And I just decided I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to make another announcement. I'm not going to ask anybody to make another announcement. Like, that looks like preschool is a sinking ship when you're up there just, begging for help, basically. So it has its challenges, but how can we flip the script? And how can we make it look more appealing and not the woe is me? Because I'm
good.
Yeah.
I love that.
It was transforming, and not to say it wasn't difficult, but I've just totally changed my thinking on it. I'm like, what? These are amazing children back here.
Why would you not want to serve?
Right.
Yeah.
You get to, and now, like I said, I'm in a very unique position. Sorry.
No, you're good.
They're coming into the bookstore.
Oh.
And I have parents come in and just I get to reap
Yeah.
what, and not a lot of people have that option because people come and go. When you teach children, you teach an age you do not see because sometimes they leave, or a lot of times they leave, their life calls them away. And I get to see this little kindergarten now with their own children.
So
Wow.
crazy. Love
And
it.
it's just amazing. And I had a mom come in that said, my daughter was one of the volunteers and she contracted a flesh-eating virus and you brought her meals. You arranged a meal schedule. That was one of my most favorite things to do, was to arrange the meal schedules for these mamas or that had just had babies and things like that. She came into the bookstore and just said how much that meant. That was forever ago. What we do matters.
Yeah.
And just keep that in mind, even if no one tells you that.
Yeah.
That
Because we serve for an audience of one. And I get that from my husband because he loves to write songs. And he feels like he kind of feels unseen at times because he's just been, wanting to get the songs out there maybe. Or just somebody to help him, and he wrote a song recently. It's called Audience of One. And it is the most beautiful song that he's ever written because that is exactly who we serve.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is Jesus. And that's why I have the name above my cash register. I mean, the sign, Jesus' name above all names, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
No, all of this is so needed. Because I get that was probably the most powerful statement you said was about the sinking ship. No one wants to be on the sinking ship. And so many of us do that, right? We're like begging for workers. Where if we just saw people and maybe we're like, wow, you're really good at such and such. Have you ever thought that maybe you could be a really cool part of the kids ministry, or, just make it seem inviting and that you see these people and they have these gifts and God wants to use them.
Right.
So I love that. I think that advice right there, that could help a lot of churches.
Amen.
Yeah. Because you don't want just anybody serving back there.
Yeah.
Right? You want somebody to say, okay, I'll serve back there. And then they're miserable. They're miserable and they're making everybody else miserable.
Yeah.
While they're back there. So.
And as a preschool, children's, youth, don't be too hard on the pastor's wives. Don't think they should be back there every week serving because they have their own responsibilities. And I'm not saying they shouldn't ever serve. Yes, I absolutely believe they should at times. But don't be too hard on them and be bitter because they're the pastor's wife. They need to be back there rocking babies every week. That's you guys have so many other responsibilities that people don't understand or don't see.
That's good. Yes. Okay. I'm going to shift the conversation just a bit, but this has been so wonderful. Yes. You're not on staff anymore, but God has moved you on to a new ministry. We've already talked about it a little bit, how in 2021 you started this bookstore. Can you kind of take us back and share how that came about, how God called you to the bookstore, and how God's using that as a ministry tool now?
So this could be an entire podcast, and I'll try to make it short. But I'm a Kentucky girl that moved to Georgia, and the Lord led me 33-ish years ago to work at a Christian bookstore, and the name of it was my store is named the Armory Bookstore. That store was named the Christian Armory, and I loved working there. I worked for owners Jim and Pam Ryman. That he was the first godly man as a 24-year-old that I ever had in my life for the most part. And he passed away about 10 years ago to a very, very rare brain disease. And I loved working there and met my husband, got married. My desire was to stay home. So I started staying home, and then the church job came up, and it was absolutely perfect for raising children and being flexible and all of that. So when I left when I left ministry in 2017, boy, I was just floundering. I was like, Lord, you told me to leave. Now, what in the world? I can't take it sitting behind this desk, just doing this and that. So I got up and I left one day and I went down to a local boutique in Athens and I started working there. And then we got a store in Monroe. So I thought, okay, well, this is it. I'm just going to hang out here in Monroe and work at this boutique. And November 2020, Fred and I were talking about how all the Lifeways had closed in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, you should just open a Christian bookstore. And I said, no. First of all, my husband, wrong word. My husband retired from firefighting in 2017. He still works as a paramedic in a local hospital, just PRN, a couple days a week. We finally had weekends after 27 years of marriage.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm not going into retail. And the Lord said, I gave you 4 years of weekends.
Okay,
I was like,
Lord.
okay. I went and talked to the city, and a lady from the city who happened to be the pastor's wife of a local church. And she walked me down the street and said, you see this little hallway here, this little space? He's been wanting to do some pop-ups in here. And when I say this is 100% the Lord, there is absolutely no other answer for it. Who would do this? Who would do this in this time of year, in this time of our life where everything is online for the most part? But have you ever heard the phrase, I just knew in my knower, my Holy Spirit knower, that something was up
I
here?
haven't, but I'm going to say that from now on.
Yes.
Go on.
It's Jennifer Allwood, who I follow on Instagram. She's a coach, a business coach. She's like, I just know in my knower.
Mm-hmm.
And I took a leap of faith and I joined one of her challenges in January of 2020. And I went down and I looked at that little space and she said, have you ever thought of starting as a pop-up? And pop-up is where you literally just pop up in a space. You might go to a festival, but I had a actual location instead for a pop-up. So I opened one weekend and I'm like, I got to get open. I just thought I was going to do a series that we'll be open here, we'll be open there. And we opened there. And then in 6 months, we moved across the street. And then a couple of weeks ago, we moved 2 doors down from where we were. So I've had 3 spaces in 3 years, and there's no other name I could think of other than the Armory Bookstore. Mm-hmm. So I wanted it to be in honor of Jim, and I called his wife, and I said, I just want you to know that this is what's going on, and this is life-changing right here. She said, I hear that it's your dream, but is it your calling? Mm-hmm. Yes. And it made me stop and think, oh, yeah, yes, it is. Like, it really made me dig deep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she said, Jim was the only employee for 7 years. Mm-hmm. He did it all. And she said, you absolutely have my blessing on the name. And that's just how it started.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. And I know it's only been 3 years, but I just hope I'm one. I hope that we are one that 40 years from now, kids are coming in that I have now with their kids, and that they'll have those memories that I hear people have now that come in. They're gosh, oh my gosh, I used to shop at the Christian Armory. Like, we just loved it so much. And they find this store and they ask, is this a part of the Christian Armory in Tucker? And I just tell them the whole story. And it was very, very perfect timing, because the armor of God is where would we be without it? It's based on that, the sword of the Spirit. The sword is in my logo, and the sword is the Word of God. And that's why I want to do the podcast from here, because Bibles are by far our number one seller. Mm-hmm. And people want to see them, they want to feel them, they want to touch them, and we do Bible imprinting. And that's, you can hardly find that anywhere.
Yeah.
That's so
So
true. People do like to, I mean, I do.
Yeah.
I was sad when Lifeway closed.
Mhm.
I
And then a
know.
lot of other Christian bookstores have closed down, which
Mhm.
is, but when we came to yours, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun
Yeah.
because there's just not a lot of them around.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
love that you're doing this. And I love that you're
And
basing it on that name.
Mhm.
yes, I would definitely encourage people to just Google wherever you're listening from,
Mm.
because you might be surprised.
Yeah.
There
Yeah.
are a lot more Christian bookstores out there than people think,
Hmm.
and there's more popping up. Not probably not what it's going to be in the 90s, years ago, where there might be 2 or 3 in your town,
Yeah.
but they are starting to pop up a little bit more. And I would just encourage you to do a little Google search in your area, and maybe you'll find one.
Yeah, girl.
Yes.
Do
Jenna,
that.
pause for a minute. Hey, Grace. Baby, you can't hum.
I can't hear her.
I could.
Okay, sweet girl? Like, has to be completely silent. Is that door shut? Okay. All of those things have to happen. We're getting close. Shut the door. It's
So-
okay.
Bless her heart.
Okay. There we go.
Every so often I'd hear,
I was like, it was like a I was like,
I mean, I heard something, but I
Aw.
wasn't sure. I guess
heard
I
banging
forgot
a
she was
couple
here.
times.
there you go. Go ahead, Jenna.
Anyway,
That's sweet.
Get us into those questions.
yes.
Sorry.
Michelle, this has been so good. I know that I want listeners to know that if you are ever anywhere close to Monroe,
Mhm.
you got to go to this bookstore.
Yes.
It's precious. It has all the things. And Michelle, you're a sweetheart.
Yeah.
We love you so much.
Yes.
yeah, go
I love
support
you guys.
Michelle. Go support the Armory Bookstore.
Right now.
Do it.
Go do it.
Go.
So,
And also, I will say, because you might ask me this question later, but because it does take so much, I have a website, but it's only like for people to find me.
Mm.
So it's in the long range plans to have our product on the website. And every now and then I'll put a few things on there. Like I'll probably put you guys' book,
Yeah.
different things that pop
thanks.
up,
That's so sweet.
But yes. So if you ever need anything, the best way is to just DM us on Facebook or Instagram. And I know this is a little old school, but then we send an invoice and we can ship it out. So
Yeah.
until we can grow and get that person to do the website, it's a lot of product.
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's just, my main focus really is the brick and mortar, but
Yeah.
I do understand that I'm going to eventually, it's in the long range plan to have everything online. So
Yeah.
on the
That makes a
website.
lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I'm going to throw this out there. We are in the works, all of us,
Yes.
for a book signing for us to go to Monroe to the new space. I can't wait to see it.
I know.
And
Yeah.
set up shop with our book and sign books. So friends, be on the lookout for that information coming soon.
Yes,
real soon.
Mario.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Michelle. So we have 3 questions for you. We
Yes.
always ask everybody 3 questions at the end of our podcast episodes. So are you ready to answer those?
I am ready.
Okay.
Well, ready or not, here we come.
Question number 1. If you could go back and give your minister leader,
Yeah.
we'll just we tweak these questions for you. Pre-minister leader self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Put your faith and your trust in Jesus alone.
Mm.
Whatever it takes, carve out that time for you and him. And remember that trying to phrase it the right way. Remember that people will fail you, but he will not.
Mm.
Amen.
Good.
That's so good.
Okay, so this is a 2-part question. While you were in full-time ministry at a church, what was something that you would do, either by yourself or with your spouse, to get your mind off of everything church ministry wise? And then also, you are very busy in ministry running a Christian bookstore. What do you do these days, or is it the same?
It really is the same. We love our date nights. My husband and I have been married 32 years.
Aw.
So, let's just touch on that for a minute. That when you're in ministry, please, or anybody, not just ministry, please make time for your marriage.
Yes.
And we love date nights, and now being empty nesters, we love to travel, even if it's just for a couple of 2 or 3 days, because you can't be away from the store for a really long time. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so I love this time of year and a good patio dinner. That
Ooh.
I love the phrase, find what sets your soul on fire.
Yeah.
You take me to dinner and a sunset.
There
Those
you
are
go.
just,
I like it.
It's good to go.
I'm simple. I'm very simple.
Yeah.
I love it.
Give me the food and some sun and I'm good. I
Exactly.
like it.
Exactly.
So good. It's so good. Okay. Final question. It's a doozy, but you've got this. If you could tell the church congregation one thing and have them really listen and respond, what would you say?
So I thought about this a lot, and as far as the church congregation goes, and I touched on it a little bit earlier, there's actually 2 things I would like to say, and one is being a grandma now. Even I've had my first grandchild. He's 9 months old, and another one on the way. As far as congregation and church goes, I would say, please just pay attention to all staff members and what they might be going through, and serve. It's so crucial. And just reach out to them, write them cards. I like I said, I'm fortunate to have 2 or 3 tubs of mementos from 21 years, and I have pictures and I have cards, and they mean the world to me, is those thank you cards. And then I would say to parents, please don't leave the training to the church.
Yes.
That's good right there, girl.
This is a Monday through Saturday are 10 times more important than the hour or 2 that they spend at church.
Yes.
So, and I'm going to go a step further, and that is teach them creation.
Yeah, that's good.
Creation. Where did we come from biblically, and make it an everyday part of your life, because it's going to be taught, not caught.
Yeah. It's good.
And it's so easy for staff members to do that too, because we're so busy pouring out on staff. Well, this just came to me. We're so busy pouring out that we forget to pour in.
Yeah.
And that is to our own family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And our relationship, our religion is a relationship, and not our position on church.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you, Michele.
It's been good, Michele. So much good
wisdom.
Goodness
Yes,
and
all the
wisdom.
things.
I don't know where that deep voice went from. Sorry, wisdom.
All right. Well, until next time.
Yeah, Michele,
Yes.
thank you. Make sure you go check out her store in Monroe.
And maybe just come see us when we're there.
Yes.
We have a potential date. We're still working on it. Should we
Yes.
say it?
Might, since it's coming up real soon.
Yeah. Okay.
It
Well,
is coming up
it's
soon.
the possibility of April 25th.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we will put, how about this?
In the show notes.
In the
maybe.
show notes, we'll say if that's confirmed or not,
Yes.
and we'll tell you the actual date down there. So go look there right now and you shall see it.
Yes. And
Yes.
until next time, we love you, Michele, and we love you guys, and y'all have a blessed week. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, friends, if you have enjoyed this episode as much as we have, please help us spread the word on Facebook and Instagram.
If you didn't know yet, Instagram is where all the fun is at. From dance reels on Wednesdays to spiritual encouragement and laugh out loud posts in between, there is something for everyone.
And last but certainly not least, if you could take a moment right now to stop what you're doing and give us a rating and review, even subscribe to our podcast, this seriously helps other people find us who wouldn't be able to otherwise. Thank you so much for your love and support. We hope you'll tune in next week.